We're going to split the room into 2 teams. And this is a game for dumb questions for smart people or just average questions for dumb people. All right. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Josh, you want to split these up into 2 teams for me?
Let me see.
I think we have 24.
All right, so
27?
oh yeah, you can't play.
Neither can Paley.
So we have 21. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Y'all couldn't have sat more equally today? Come on now.
Lane, will you do me a favor? Will you come sit up here in the second row? All right, so this is your second, this is team 1. These 2 rows are team 2.
Okay.
One team is the smart team, the other team is the dumb team.
Always.
You will find out which one you are at the end of the game.
Yes, whoever wins. How we'll do this is we'll have one person from each team come up, and I will read the question, and then you have to answer that question. If you get it right, you get plus 1 point. If you get it wrong, the other team gets 1 point. Can I have the bell, Mr. Josh?
Oh, yes.
You don't want to play? Too bad. All right, I need one person from the front 2 rows and one person from the back 2 rows. Doesn't matter who comes up. You're all going to be able to go. Some of you can go twice if you want. All right, he was here first, James. Come on up, Miss Lady. Everyone gets to go and play around. Okay, so it's important. Whoever rings the bell first gets to answer the question first. So be prepared. Our first question is, well, I guess I got to spin the round. Yeah, I kind of explained it. But each round you'll be given a dumb question with an obvious answer, easy right, except a few questions aren't so dumb and they seem obvious, but their answers can be very tricky. Be the first one to get the right answer. If you don't get the right answer, like let's say you guessed the wrong answer, his team would get a point. And vice versa. Okay, first question. What color is the White House?
Off-white.
Off-white. You'll be correct. Plus 1 point for the back 2 rows. All right, 2 new people come make your way up. I don't care who it is. Everybody's going to go at least 1 time, so make sure you make your way up here eventually. Unless you played last service. All right, next question. Airplanes have a black box that keeps important data in case of a crash. What color is this box?
Orange.
Orange. You are correct. 1 point for the 2 teams in the front.
You should make a rule that you have to complete the whole question before they can ding the bell.
Okay, yeah. Let me read the full question, then you can ding it.
Jonah did that.
Yes. 2 new contestants, come on up. All right, Asher, make your way up here. Emma, you can go next round. All right, your guys' question will be, if you split 12 eggs into 2 equal groups, how many eggs will you have? 12 eggs. You are correct. All right.
They're already doing so much better than the first.
They are. Y'all, the first round was full of a lot of dumb people. I think you know what that means. All right, 2 new people make your way up. Emma, you want to come on up here? You can go. And then someone else from the front 2 rows that has not gone. There we go, Lane. There we go. All right. I will read you a question, and then you have to ring the bell to answer from one of the 2 choices. What was the last name of the man who invented the jacuzzi? Weston. Wrong! You guys got a point. Good job, Emma. Doesn't matter. He got it wrong. Yeah.
All right, front row. Front row.
Front row, send your contestant up. There we go. Way to be up here. Thank you for sending up here. Are you ready to answer this question? Yeah. I know you. I already know the answer to you. What was the name of Apple's first computer?
Apple 1.
Apple 1. You be Apple correct.
This notice it actually says Apple's fist computer.
It does say fist. All right, 2 new contestants come on up.
Front row has 2 points. Back row has 3. No, because if you guys get it wrong, it's really on.
Okay, you're the ready.
Make your way up.
Sacrificing William.
Everyone's going to go at least once.
Everyone?
Everyone's going to go at least once. Sorry. Come on. Come on. Come on. No, he already went. He's gone before. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Doesn't matter. Everyone's going to go. We split the room up into 2 equal teams anyways.
Let's go, Harley.
Thank you. Thank you, Harley.
I'm gonna sell.
You're fine. You're not going to suck because it's a 50% chance.
I'm gonna sell.
You're going to sell. All right. Ready? Get ready to ring the bell. You might not even need to ring the bell.
I'll ring the bell.
You might just, one of you might get the question wrong. Let me finish the question first. All right. Let's take the bell away and give it to her now. Put it in the middle. How many months have 30 days in them?
11.
Correct. Good job. See, and she didn't even sell. 2 new contestants. Please make your way up.
No, she changed it.
She did.
She saved it.
One of you two. Make your way up. Come make your way up. 2 new contestants. Come on, come on. You don't even have to answer it. 2 new contestants. I know, 2 new contestants. Let's say everybody's gone. I think I was tempting him to come up. Yeah. What's your name? I don't know. Zach? Oh, perfect. Add another Zach to the collection. We have a lot of Zachs already. In what state would you find Kansas City?
Missouri.
Missouri. Correct. Yeah, but
All right, it's 2 to 5.
2 to 5.
Front row has
Front row. You guys are slacking. Front row. We need 2 more people to go that haven't gone. Come on, please. Come on. It's not that hard, man. Come on, just come up here. You don't even need to answer. You just can stand up here and let them answer. Because if they get it wrong, you still get a point. So don't be lame and say, oh, I'm too cool for this game. Come on. Come on. Just stand up here. You don't even need to answer it. You don't even need to answer it, dude. Don't be. Come on. Come on. Heidi, would you like to be our contestant for the game? No, that's lame though. Basically, we asked you a question. It may be obvious, it may not be, and smart questions for dumb people. Dumb questions for smart people. It's all right.
Wow, you got a haircut.
I know, it doesn't look good. All right, your question is, what country has the most pyramids? Egypt. Wrong! See, you got a point. Good job. See how easy that was? She didn't even ring the bell. Come on, come on. Yeah, you got a point. You got the point because you got it wrong. Good job.
All actually represent the Dye family poorly.
All right. You guys can come up again if you want to play. I think he's in this side. You're in the back row. Go to this side.
Oh, somebody beat your record. You got 7 in a row. Who's an adult?
Sure. All right. Your question is, my sirs, where did Abraham Lincoln make his Gettysburg Address?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Gettysburg.
Oh, Let's go.
All right, the score is now the front row has 4. The back row has 5.
4 to 5. All right. So we can have more than, if you came up before, you can come up again. Make your way up front. If you haven't gone and you want to go, make sure that's known and you make your way up here. This is a rematch? Did y'all go against each other last time too? No? Okay. All right, let's see your question. How many letters are on a standard 8-sided stop sign?
4.
4. Correct. 5-5, tied up. All right. Yes, you're welcome to go up a second time. Where'd our music go? Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Somebody get some Jeopardy music or Family Feud. How long was the 100-Year War, Johnny?
100 years.
100 years. Wrongo. 116. Good try. Come back up. Make your way up, people. Have you gone twice? Because it sounds cooler. Come on, friends. It did. All right, automatically the point goes to the back 2 rows. Have you gone? Have you gone twice?
Yes. Hey, is he allowed to do that? Have
No.
his handhooks?
No.
Okay.
This is acceptable. On the side. Okay. What is the capital of Panama?
San Miguelito.
San Miguelito. Panama City. Wrong. Good job. All right, new contestants, make your way up. Come on, people. No. You know the answer. Thank you for making your way up. All right, get ready, guys. What common loon is Minnesota's state bird? Common loon. Correct. Good guess, good guess.
And just feel like they're. See if you can get it wrong. See if you get it wrong for him to get a point.
I can't see why not. You're not allowed to hit it, so this is a handicap for your team, but come on, back row, come on, back 2 rows. You guys can go again. You're welcome to go again.
I am.
Founded in 1929, it's the New York museum that is dedicated to modern art.
Just press it. I can't. I wonder.
You have 5 seconds.
Smithsonian.
Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Wrong! He didn't even hit the bell.
All right, it's all tied up 7-all.
We got 3,
We're at 18 total, so
4 more questions. Thank you,
I'm
thank you.
genuinely terrible at this. Good
Let's
luck.
see. The Declaration of Independence was signed in what hall?
Why does it have to be American
What?
history?
Hall of Presidents. Wrong. The Hall of Independence.
Independence Hall.
Good job. 3 more questions. Sure. All right, guys. Listen up. If you are running a race and pass a person in second place, what place are you in now?
Second place.
Second place. He is correct. Good job to the front 2 rows.
If you were running a race and you pass a person in second, what place are you in? Strategy is to ring the bell first, wait, and then figure it out.
Yes, you can. Go ahead. Don't let your team down. It's a close race right now. 2 more questions? In what year did the War of 1812 begin? I didn't finish. She gets to go.
I didn't click it.
Oh. Whoever didn't let me finish, the other person gets to go.
1812.
1812. Correct. Sorry. I had to finish before I say it. I didn't finish it. You have to let me finish. All right. Determines the winner. All right, guys. Everybody, I need a fair fight. Hand on table. 1 on the side. 1 arm by the side, hand on the table. Whoever gets this determines if you tie or if you win. So,
Wait, who's
the front row is winning by 1 point. Can we tie it up? Let's find out. On what island would you find the Statue of Liberty?
Ellis Island.
Ellis Island. Liberty Island. No! Good job, good job. Hey guys. Good job, everybody. Thank you for participating and not being lame. Those who didn't participate, you're lame. All right. Well, we are passing out candy. We got a few quick announcements, so please listen up. Shh, guys. You're going to get your candy. Listen up. Announcements real quick. Wednesday night groups at the Activity Center. We play games. We have lesson. We have lots of fun. Show up. It's a whole lot of fun. Those who don't show up, shame. There's a lot of you in here right now. I'm not pointing any fingers or looking at anybody, but those who don't show up, you should show up. It's super fun. Super fun and cool. Doors open at 6:15. Be there at 6:30. We have a Bible. Anybody have their Bible they purchased from us right here on Quick Access? No. They are $20. They are super cool. They got a lot of extra information on the side. And it's great for you guys to learn. And it's just helpful if you want to, read the Bible and delve a little deeper. All right. Is that it? Band app. Y'all, if you haven't signed up, if you're not in the band app already, what are you doing? Y'all get in the band app. It's pretty okay. Yeah, if you're in the band app, you should be scanning the QR code right now. But yeah, Josh Kennedy, everybody.
All right, guys. Good morning. Boo this man. All right. All right, guys. Before I get into our lesson for tonight, thank you so much. Today. I'm already thinking of the high school group. All right. Do me a favor. Make sure all your electronic devices are put away, tablets, phones, whatever you have. Let's pray, guys. Let's get into some prayer before we move into our lesson for today. Jesus, we love you. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for your friendship. God, we thank you for the many ways that you have worked through not only our lives, but that you've worked through other people's lives that now we can talk about and kind of have them set another example as to how we live our lives. So Jesus, bless our time together and help us grow in our knowledge of you. Amen. Amen. All right, guys. So, yeah, we are on our final teaching of the One Small Step series. And then starting next Sunday, who is like, hey, I for sure will be here next Sunday. I'm going to be in this room next Sunday at 11 a.m. Like 5 of you. Awesome. All 5 of you are my favorites. The rest of you are just below mid at best. So, next week, we will start our Easter series. That's how close we are. Yeah, I know. So it's going to be a really fun time. So, guys, before I get into my teaching, who remembers what we've been talking about the past previous 2 weeks when it comes to the One Small Step? Does anybody have anything that stands out to them as far as what we covered? Because I think back, I know I wasn't in here for when Garrett taught 2 weeks ago, but I know that he covered the life of Noah. And the thing that was really cool about the Noah series or the Noah conversation was that, do you guys remember what Noah had to do with getting called into God's story? Remember what Noah had to have happen? So never in human history was there a bunch of rain that flooded out everything. And so God tells Noah, he's like, hey man, I'm going to make a flood. There's going to be a crazy amount of rain. And essentially everybody that's not in this boat, which there was not really boats. There were boats, but nothing to this magnitude, nothing like Noah was building like a cruise ship, basically, in the size proportions. And so it would have been a wild experience if Asher is Noah, all right? And Asher goes around and he tells everybody, there's going to be a flood. I don't know why Asher speaks like Mickey Mouse all of a sudden, but he's going around and he's like, there's going to be a flood. Everybody's got to get in the boat, okay? And like, sorry, that was not one of the best moments for you or me, honestly. But yeah, like Noah would have gone around and he would have been telling people like, hey, there's going to be a flood. And if you're not in this boat, you're going to die. And people were looking at him like, you might be on something, bro. Like you might, like, I don't know what was in your Fruit Loops this morning, but like you were pretty cuckoo. And so as a result, yeah, everybody except for Noah's family and 2 of every creature died. But the main lesson that Garrett was really trying to promote in that conversation was the importance of us obeying God. And that when we feel like, I know that if I'm not going to make everybody in the room do this. In fact, this is called a rhetorical question, which means what, Johnny? You don't need to answer. I don't need hands up. But like, I'm pretty sure that everybody in this room, or at least most of us, would say like, I don't know how well I would know God's voice if he told me to do something. And that's an awesome goal for us to work to achieve, is if, do you know the difference between your voice, your thoughts, your conscious, and God's voice speaking into your head? Because this is how Noah was able to differentiate, saying like, God has called me to do something, and Noah obeyed. So that was really critical. Week 2, last week, Zach talked about Abraham and how he followed God without a destination. And so Bentley gets to be Abraham. No, I'm just kidding. But God tells Abraham, he's like, hey man, pack up all your stuff and move over here. Just move. And you've never been here before. In fact, you've probably only maybe ever heard of it a couple times, but I need you to go and pack up and move and leave everything that you know and go to this distant land. And so does anybody remember what Abraham received by him packing up and going to this foreign land? Huh? Well, I mean, kind of. Does anybody really know what he received? He received this what? People would be blessed through him. So yeah, like he was going to inherit countless ancestors, and that like his family was going to be significantly blessed out of that. And the main thing is that Abraham trusted God. And like I mentioned, today I'm going to wrap up this series and we're going to jump into Easter next week because that's the greatest season of our Christian faith. But let me ask you guys this question first. Hey, guys, do me a favor. Don't be distracting to everybody around, please. Have you ever wanted to quit something when something was incredibly difficult? Anybody ever like really just wanted to throw in the towel and say like, nah, I can't do this anymore? What did you want to quit? Or did you quit?
Sometimes if I'm not doing a very good competition, I just want to be done.
If you're having a bad game, you're just like, all right, I'm better on the bench, so to speak, on there. Isaac.
When in soccer, parents go too far and slash each other's tires over a bad call, ref, fighting.
I was never found guilty of that. Okay, so that's important to note. And as you get into high school and start driving if you start coming to high school group and then stop coming and you're driving, I will slash your tires then too, just so you know. Okay, no, just kidding. All right, Emma, what were you gonna say?
Pizza bagels. They just taste so bad.
We could have a potential debate about that. I'm a pizza rolls kind of person, so I would agree with you on that. So, Heidi. Hey guys. Shh, shh, shh. Okay, so like a dance group? Yeah. Anybody in this room ever played basketball, like for a school or like an organization? Anybody ever have to go through conditioning in order to be on the basketball team? Do you guys all go through conditioning? So like, as I put in my notes, I think it was like, I specifically remember conditioning because how many of you prepared yourself for conditioning? Did anybody start to run and get themselves into shape for how many of you did not? And you just showed up to conditioning completely unprepared? Yeah. You are my people, okay? Like, you are my people because this is how I also did conditioning. I just showed up and I was significantly out of shape. This was like 7th grade. I want to say it was 6th grade maybe. And really conditioning is just a fancy word for program to make you vomit, right? Like, like that's what conditioning is. Like, I feel like the basketball coach or whoever was leading your conditioning, they have one goal. They have one objective. Make you puke, okay? Like, and if you don't throw up, then I think that they're a little disappointed. I know I would be if I was your basketball coach. But I definitely threw up a bunch in conditioning, and it made me want to quit the team. Like, before basketball practice even began, I was contemplating quitting basketball in the early conditioning stages. Why? Because it sucked. It was difficult. It was hard. Nobody likes to run to the point that they're throwing up and that you drink just a little bit of water and 10 minutes later you're now vomiting that little bit of water up. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Yes, I figured that there would be some of you that would understand this. But seeing the progress happen, because the more that I kept, like, I'll never forget, this is actually so long ago that Meijer had only been open for maybe 6 months at this point. But I remember going to conditioning and Meijer, guys, do me a favor, please. Shh. Meijer was like a very brand new grocery store at the time. And I was on day 2, I think, of conditioning. And we had to go into Meijer. I had to go in with my mom. And like my legs hurt so bad because, again, I'm underprepared. I didn't get myself ready. So I did all these, I don't know what they're called now. They used to be called suicides. You guys know what suicides are? It's the worst thing ever, right? It's the worst. It is torture. It is torture. Yeah. So my legs hurt real bad, and I'm like walking into Meijer like this, kind of like how I walk now as an old man. But I was walking like this, and like it's really rough. But I kept persevering. In other words, I kept going, and I got in better shape. And then come by basketball season, I'm able to make it up and down the court, and I was able, I'm not winded anymore. And so it was nice to be able to keep a steady heartbeat and not be so winded by the time the basketball season actually came around. And so the reality is that it's easy to turn back. It's easy to give up on something when things are hard. But with anything in life, no matter what it is, real character and faith pushes through when we make sure that we do it, that we see it all the way through. It's really easy for us to give up. It's a lot harder to actually see it through. And so the question is, how do you keep going? How do you keep doing right even when it's hard? And so today I'm going to talk to you about how the Israelites would have felt the exact same way. In other words, the Israelites were who? What kind of people? Whose people? Not angels. They're God's people. They're God's chosen people, just like all of us in this room are also God's people, okay? So, but we're going to talk about Moses and how he continued taking one small step forward. And that's where we've been reading a lot out of Hebrews. Garrett read out of the beginning of Hebrews. This is called the Hall of Faith. I don't know did you guys talk about that, the Hall of Faith at all? Yeah. So this is one of the greatest chapters in the whole Bible. Hebrews chapter 11, because it talks about all these people that had super complicated lives, just like you and I do, but yet God used them, and we all have something that we can pick from this. Does anybody know what, like, because I was sharing this with my own boys earlier this week. They didn't even fully know. Does anybody know what, like, if we were going to call it like a huge sin that Moses committed, does anybody know what, like, Moses did that would have been so bad? Janelle? He murdered an Egyptian, right? So when we're talking about Moses being one of the greatest people in the Bible, we can't forget that the dude literally killed somebody else, okay? Now, that's not Moses' only sin or whatever, but it's like a sizable one. And so the Hall of Faith here in Hebrews chapter 11 says, it was by faith, it was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. And so it would have been easier for Moses, which I'm going to talk about, it would have been easier for him to turn his back when Pharaoh was angry, but he continued to take steps in the right direction, which is where God was leading him into. All right. So I want to dig into this story real quick. And I just have a couple notes here because most of us, I believe, are familiar with Moses' story, but not necessarily everyone here. So essentially, Moses was born what? What nationality was Moses? Isaac? Kind of. Yeah. He wasn't born Egyptian, but good. He was born in a basket. Janelle? So yeah, this was before the Israelites were Israelites. So at this point, they're just called Hebrews. Okay? They were Hebrew people. And does anybody remember what Pharaoh had made a law for all Hebrew people? Heidi.
All the stuff that all the baby boys that throw in
Yeah. So all boys, if they were a Hebrew boy, there were so many Hebrew people that the Egyptians are keeping the Hebrew people as slaves. And all of a sudden, the Egyptians are looking around and they're like, bro, I think that there's more Hebrew people than Egyptians. Why would this be bad for them? They can take them over, right? If there's more Hebrews. And so that's when Pharaoh's like, hold on, we got to put a stop to this. We're going to kill all the Hebrew boys. And so, yeah, literally, like, as soon as they would see like a little baby boy Hebrew boy, they would just take him and throw him in the Nile River.
Why?
Well, because I just said there were too many Hebrew people. And so Moses' mom, guys, please don't do that. Moses' mom, she's like, hey, I can't let this baby boy of mine die. And so she puts him in a basket, puts him in the river so that he's floating, and he sends him down the river. Guys, I'm going to ask you one quick favor. Garrett's about to start separating people that are not able to just lock in, because you're not only being a distraction to your neighbor right next to you, you're being a distraction to the people around you, behind you, and stuff like that. Yes?
We actually learned about this in school because we were learning about religions and social studies.
Yeah?
So we like watched. There's a movie about this.
It's not a Disney movie, but yeah, it's got
I forget the name. It's on
Prince of Egypt. No, that's Joseph, right?
I'm pretty sure because
Yeah, that's what I assume that some of you were familiar with the story. So what we know is that because Moses' mom puts him in the river, the Pharaoh's daughter ends up finding him, which is like a really cool situation to happen to this baby, because Moses gets raised how? As a prince, essentially. Because Pharaoh's essentially title as like king of Egypt. And so the princess of Egypt, so to speak, is the one that takes Moses in as her own. So he becomes royalty, which is crazy now that we've doubled up on the fact, like Janelle pointed out, that Moses killed somebody. One day, as a prince of Egypt, he's walking around realizing, wait a minute, I'm not Egyptian. I'm Hebrew like these other slaves. And so this realization that like he has this special title over his own people starts to set in, and he's conflicted inside because he cares about the Hebrew people. That's the people that carry the same skin as him and like his culture and stuff. But he's understanding like, oh man, I'm being raised as an Egyptian with all this authority and power and entitlement. And so it bothers him. He sees injustice. What did he see happening, Janelle? Yeah, there was an Egyptian slave master that was being aggressive in the way that he was like whipping his Hebrew slave. And so Moses kills him. Well, I don't know the details to it. Well, I would say that maybe beating a slave too bad would be a really bad thing. And so because Moses sees this injustice, he steps in, and the Bible doesn't cover exactly how, but he kills this Egyptian man. I know in the movie, whether it's Pixar or Disney, like he falls off like the pyramid. And so because of this, Moses thinks like, oh, okay, well, these Hebrew people have my back, but like it's the next day, and like he goes to jump into a situation, and now the Hebrew people are like, what, are you going to kill me like how you killed that person yesterday? And Moses is like, oh shoot, like they know me as a murderer. And so he flees, he leaves Egypt, and he's gone away for a long time. And then here's where we're going to be picking up into the story here, because now God has called him to be able to rescue the rest of these Hebrew people. Years later, he said, hey, Moses, I choose you. And Moses is like, why me? Like, Moses doesn't even really elaborate on the fact that he's a murderer and that God's asking him. What is Moses' biggest hang up with God on why he shouldn't be the one to be involved? Emma?
He's probably going to kill him too.
Nope. Well, Moses has a bigger concern about why he shouldn't be the one to go and speak to get the Hebrew people out of there. What's the problem that he has?
Because they know him as
Kinda. But the biggest problem was he had a speech impediment. Like he had a really strong stutter, or Moses struggled with being able to speak well. And so Moses is like, wait a minute, you want me to be the one that like speaks in front of Pharaoh and gets all the Hebrew people out? Like, God, I can't talk well. And God's like, you're the one, man. You're the one. Don't forget that when we go through these things, when we're going through this hall of faith in Hebrews 11, all of these people were flawed in their own eyes. All of these people felt inadequate in their own eyes. And again, I don't need to rhetorically, I don't need you guys to stick your hands up, but I am confident that many of us in our daily lives, we feel inadequate. We don't feel like we're the ones that should be going out and doing something great, especially when it comes to doing something for God. And this is why we have something like the Hall of Faith, so that we can look at people like Noah, Abraham, Moses, and others and be like, dang, they had messed up lives. Moses didn't feel like he could be somebody that spoke up for his people. And then he ended up having thousands of Hebrew people that he was responsible for. He was kind of like the role of a king before the Hebrew people actually had the king. So many of us know this story. Moses finally agrees. He goes into Egypt. He's working with Pharaoh on getting the Hebrew people out. But what happens with this interaction between between Moses and the Pharaoh? Yep. There's all these plagues that happen. There's all these really crazy things. And if you've never read this in Exodus, I would encourage you to pick up at the beginning of the book of Exodus and be able to read through this. But basically what happens is there's this whole back and forth that happens where Moses is like, hey, let my people go. And Pharaoh's like, nah. And Moses is like, all right, then something bad's going to happen to you. And this happens again and again and again and again. And finally it gets so out of control that Moses is like, hey, if you don't let my people go today, God is going to kill all the firstborn kids, boys, and animals like sheep, cows, goats. All the firstborn of everything is going to die unless you put this blood up on the top of your doorstep, was to signify that this house was protected by God. And so what happens? None of the Egyptian people do it. None of the Egyptian people, because our God, Yahweh, was not their God. So they did not listen. And all of the Hebrew people put the blood of a lamb up on top of their doorstep that night. And so in the movie, if you recall, there's a big crying out because all these people, including Pharaoh, wakes up the next morning with dead sons, with dead livestock. And so this is where in Exodus 12, it picks up. Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron during the night. Get out, he ordered. Leave my people and take the Israelites with you. Go and worship the Lord as you have requested. So it finally gets to this point where, like, the Pharaoh, the king, had to lose his own son in this process. And so through years of slavery and through the obedience of God's word, the Israelites, again, this is who they will one day be, the Israelites, they're finally set free. And so Moses had to lead the people out of Egypt and out of slavery. And so does anybody remember what happens with Pharaoh's heart after this? No. That would be a wild twist, though. Like, you know, Isaac. Kind of, but the Bible refers to it a certain way. Yeah, the Bible literally calls it that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. So he becomes angry. He becomes bitter. And even though he just sent Moses and the Hebrews out, he's like, hey, no, actually, I want you guys back as slaves. And so he changed his heart towards anger and pursued with the Israelites. And it would have been a whole lot easier and safer to surrender to the Egyptians. But see, the thing was, Moses didn't fear Pharaoh. Moses didn't fear the Egyptians. And he had his eyes set on God, because whose whole plan was this from the beginning? To get the Hebrew people out of Egypt? God's. He came to Moses and said, hey, lead my people out. And Moses initially was like, what? Got the wrong guy. I'm not the one. I can't do this. I'm sitting here like, I got a whole night of Minecraft playing, God. I'm hanging out with the boys. You know, like, he's like, I got all this stuff going on, and I can't speak, and I can't be the one, and I can't do this, and I got all this going on. But God's like, no, you are the one. You are the one. And so he sends him into this over and over, and Moses takes him up on it. And now he's leading the Israelite people out of Egypt. Moses didn't fear Pharaoh. When the Israelites came to the Red Sea, one of the coolest things that, like, we've never witnessed, but if you could imagine a giant, like, at the minimum, I'm guessing pretty much everybody has seen Lake Erie, right? Has anybody not seen Lake Erie?
It's a lake full of eyes.
Of eyes? That would be awesome. Erie Eye. You've never seen Lake Erie? Really? You've been to someplace else with a lot of water, right? The ocean? Chicago, that's Lake Michigan. All right, so like nobody is going to get into Lake Erie, Lake Michigan, the Atlantic Ocean, you know, and like try to cross over by walking through the water. But here's where the Israelites find themselves, and yeah, there's this really cool scene where Moses splits the water, and they're able to walk across dry land of what would have been like, man, probably such a muddy situation. They're able to walk and get to the other side because this was God's idea. This is what God had called them into. So when there was this really cool supernatural miracle where God provided a way because they were walking in his will. They were walking in his plan. They were walking out of their own slavery and towards freedom in God. And so here's the bottom line for each one of us to understand in the story and how it really applies to each one of us. We, because of our sin, we've all been born into some kind of slavery. We're a slave to sin. We're a slave to the control that it has over us. We're a slave to the fact that, like, if we let sin just run rampant in our lives, then it'll take a hold of us and it'll control us and make us somebody that God had never really intended for us to be. See, God had a plan for Moses, and he has a plan for each one of us. Now, your plan probably doesn't involve you splitting a Red Sea. It probably doesn't even involve you splitting Lake Erie. It might, I don't know. But just because we read in our Bibles about like these crazy miracles of supernatural power where, like, you know, Jesus brought Lazarus back to life, that God helped Moses split the sea, that a donkey actually talked out of, you know, like words, if you know the story of Balaam, okay? Like, there's all these miracles that happen in the Bible. And sometimes I think that we get held up in our brains and we think like, wow, that would have been kind of crazy to live back then and see those miracles, forgetting the fact that those miracles probably happen in your life almost every single day and that we just miss it. We don't think about it. But God's called you out of slavery. He's called you out of sin because he has something so much better for your life. Remember, why is sin so bad? Because it separates us from God. And so the more that we give into our sin, the further we're actually pushing away from God. And that's the version of ourselves that God has created us to be, will always be the happiest version that you'll ever experience of your own life. So if we recognize, if we're saying like we are all slaves to our sin, then just like the Israelites, like they were tired of their slavery to the Egyptians, so they got out of there. And in the same way, God is calling you to leave your sin behind and to continue to move on without it and to leave without hesitation, just like Moses did. Moses had one objective with those Israelites: get them in and or get them out as fast as possible. Pharaoh was the problem there, so they had to work through Pharaoh. But Moses knew his objective: get the Israelites out. Here's your objective, y'all. Get out of the sin. Whatever it is. Everybody in this room has something different. And they got something that they're struggling with now. And maybe in a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple years, it's going to look different. But we are all struggling with different kinds of sins. And that's what we'll experience forever until we live in heaven and not on this earth. But you don't have to be a slave to it. So for us, it's understanding that we can't get tired of what's doing right. That's what the Bible has called us to do what's right. So this is where Paul was talking to the people of Galatia, and he said, let's not get tired of doing what's good. At just the right time, we're going to reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. So just like when I talked about my conditioning this morning at the beginning, that conditioning was awful. And we all have things that like we have thought about giving up before, but I hope you have a story of where you actually stuck through and it like paid off because you didn't give up. And here's where you've got a moment to realize, and I say it almost every time that I talk to you guys, everyone walked into this hallway the same way. They came into this room. We all have an opportunity to walk out different. And so your objective is going to say, am I going to be a slave to my sin for the rest of today? Am I going to let sin control me tomorrow? Or am I going to try to walk away from it as far as I can and find my own promised land with God? Freedom's a process. It was a process for the Israelites. And freedom is a process for all of us too, because in order to be free, we have to give something up. For us, it's our sin. God has sent you his Holy Spirit. So as long as we know that Jesus died on that cross and saved us from our sin, then God gives us this precious gift of his Spirit living in our hearts. So remember that you're a temple and that you don't want to give into slavery because you want God's Spirit to roam freely in your hearts. And just like the Israelites, it is easier to turn back. It sometimes is going to be easier to turn back around. But when we keep our eyes focused on Jesus, that's where transformation happens. So hopefully through this series, you've taken small steps in your own life. That was our goal. That's why this whole series was called One Small Step, because the journey isn't to wake up in the morning and to sprint and to see if you can run 15 miles when you haven't been conditioned. You haven't been part of the process. It's about taking small steps and taking it one step at a time. So it might not feel like you're actually far from your Egypt, but step by step, you're getting closer to your own destiny. And remember, that's what God has called you to be. So don't stop. Keep going in your own lives. Jesus, we thank you for the ways that you've given us this hall of faith, God, and that it's crazy to think about that there's 25 students in this room today. That God, you have given each one of us these own incredible stories that I fully believe will impact people someday. That we're going to be able to tell our own stories. And yeah, it may not sound exactly like Moses. It may not sound like Abraham, Noah, or Samson, or Jacob, or Peter, or Paul. But we've got our own stories that are going to greatly impact people because we get to walk and journey with you, God. And it's full of all kinds of twists and turns. But God, you've got something so amazing set ahead of us. And so God, I pray that we walk away from our sin and say that that's not worth it. And that instead, keeping our eyes focused on you, and even when it gets tough, even when it's hard, that we're not going to give up. We're not going to turn around. We're going to keep our eyes focused on you because that is where the prize is. So Jesus, thank you for transforming our lives, and pray that when we walk out of these doors today, when we walk out of the church, that we are truly transformed and that you are changing us, God, because we're letting you in. We love you and thank you, Lord. Amen. All right, guys, we got roughly maybe 5 more minutes or so. So as always, if you are in these 2 front rows, do me a favor, stack these chairs up about 7 high. We'll leave the 2 back rows up. And please look around and gather up any trash that's on the ground and throw that trash away, please.
How are you doing, John?
Doing well, Daniel. How about you?